Great.
I feel like you're about to like snap into some
I'm going to do
good morning, and here we are
no.
on 105.4. You know, like...
That is what I'm going to do. Literally, in a moment, I'm going to do that.
Are you?
And then we'll go back to being normal people.
I can't wait. I can't
You
wait.
ready?
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Welcome to the Actors Yard podcast with me, Dean Graham, and today I'm joined by actor Ellora Torchia. Hello.
Hello.
Ellora. How are you? Do you refer to yourself as actor or actress?
Oh God, good question. I am very unfussed. Whoever wants to call me actor or actress, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, because there was a whole thing about it. It felt like a Twitter thing that kind of came out, and there was a contention around the word actress.
Yeah, I mean, I think historically, I don't know, but I think that it was used to sort of represent different sort of work. So I think that's where it's come from. Right. So maybe there's some apprehension for using that word, but I'm not sure that, I mean, for me personally, I think ultimately what I do is the same as whatever gender you want to give it. You know, what I do and what you do is the same. Yeah. So I don't really mind.
Not in the orange selling game.
No.
One might say. I think I made the switch very quickly.
Yeah.
I think I felt that there was a bit of a thing happening there, and I was like, well, it makes no difference to me. I'll just go, everyone's an actor, great, I'm fine with that. Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Don't know whether it's a contentious thing anymore.
I mean, I think it is. I definitely think we're stepping into a world where I think there's a lot of labels that people are finding as ways to sort of express diversity and originality and uniqueness. But I think that ultimately, for me personally, in terms of what my goals are as a human being, I think it's very much sort of really remembering what we all have in common and the real oneness that we all have. Yeah. So I don't necessarily want to buy into the sort of labeling too much, because I just think that makes it harder to come back to the idea of us all being the same.
It's really difficult, isn't it? Because I think that the driver feels like it's aiming towards inclusivity, but through some kind of process of definition, which is a really tricky, it obviously gets incredibly rocky. Yeah. I freaked out last year when, I was sending, I'm saying it now, like Christmas cards at Christmas time for the Actors Yard. And I was like, whoever came and, to the Christmas episode of the Actors Yard, I say episode, session or workshop. And I was like, I'll just get cards for everyone. And then I freaked out because I was like, I should make it Happy Holidays, right? So it's like a more inclusive thing. I was freaking out about saying the word Christmas. I'm like, I'm not even religious. So it's
I know.
To me, it was a really strange process to have to go through, like worrying about whether or not I was offending anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting one. I mean, I'm studying philosophy at the moment, so I'm doing my other degree in that. And, we do touch on the ideas of, it makes quite, as an academic thing, so the idea of sort of academic integrity is really deciphering the differences between opinion, fact, pure fiction, and like supposition. Yeah. So I think there are differences between those things, and I think those are things we can acknowledge. But I really do think that how one feels about a certain thing is in their rights too. I think I would hope that we're moving towards a world where all those different feelings can be examined and explored and discussed with ease and without this sense of stress to be like, oh God, I have to write or say the right thing. Yeah. Because it also then implies that we're all supposed to be like hyper knowledgeable and know the exact right thing to say at all times. Yeah. But, we don't. You have to learn that. Yeah. And if you don't go through a process of learning that, then how do you get to that result? So I feel like ultimately it's slightly counterintuitive. But like, as you say, I do see the relevance for why it's going that way. Yeah. But on a sort of more macro scale, not to bang on, but on a macro scale, I think it's fascinating that it's happening in certain areas of the world. When you look at certain areas in terms of geographically, economically, in terms of privilege and time as a luxury. Yeah, wow. How interesting that those are the places where perhaps these conversations are happening more than in other parts of the world. And so it's a relative And I think as an idea, if it's relative, it's definitely not objective. So you can't have a right and a wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's sort of a
absolutely.
philosophical approach. So
And also, it does get very tricky because it's like not everyone has the same level of exposure to those things anyway.
yeah.
So like the conversation that we might be having, which feels like it's so universal, there is so many people that aren't privy to that conversation and don't really understand that there is an issue, never mind what those issues are and what the implications of those issues are. So it's a very tricky thing.
I think it is. I think politically, I think what makes it slightly dangerous, in my opinion, is that if you go to either end of the spectrum and you go to the extreme of either end, it becomes the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, if you're, whether you're left, right, or whatever your feelings are, if you're anti-extremism, which is fundamentally not a space that can cultivate harmonious growth, because it's pretty dogmatic, whether that's left or right, you're dealing then with the oppression of that feeling, which just means that you become suffocated as a human being. And I think that that's just, that it's not to say that that's the point of life. We must be creative and we must learn to grow and we must be harmonious. There's nobody saying that should be it.
Yeah.
But I think that what else is there to do, And that's the thing I always come down to. It's just like, I was thinking about this the other day. I was saying, when you're born, the second you're born, you're beginning to die. Yeah. And I was just like, well, if that's the case, then you're going to die anyway. This is getting really morbid, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you're going to die anyway. So, you could make that choice tomorrow, or you could just wait until whenever it happens.
Yeah.
In the interim, what else is there to do but just try new things?
Yeah.
Eat different foods, learn about new people, try and learn languages. I don't know, just do the stuff that's available.
Yeah.
And I think it's as basic as that. It sounds a bit weird.
Honestly, I love that we've immediately
just gone straight
started this conversation, and it's so existential and so philosophical. Love it. I'm so excited about it. So you're doing a degree.
I'm doing another degree.
Yeah, doing another degree. What was your first degree?
In acting.
As in, like, you did BA acting.
I did BA
at RADA.
acting.
We'll come back to that. But you've made a decision to go and do a proper open university. Is that what you're doing? Open university philosophy. Oh my God, philosophy degree.
Yes.
BA, straight from there, like a 3-year thing.
Like a 3-year thing. I mean, God knows if it's going to take 3 years. I think the good thing with the open university is that, like, you pay per module and you've got, like, honestly, I think it's about 12 or 14 years. If I want to keep pausing it, I could for a very long time. So I'm not feeling the pressure of, like, trying to get it done in 3 years.
And what made you want to go do it? What made you want to be a student again?
I just felt like I was reading. I love to read, and I like to have sort of debates with myself, and mostly it is sort of in the sort of sociological or psychological or philosophical sort of dynamics. So I was thinking, well, I'm doing all of this for myself anyway. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody give me a structure so that I can structure these ideas? Yeah. And actually just, like, I kind of missed writing an essay. I know it was so really geeky, but I just really was like, oh God, it was so daunting writing my first assignment. I was just terrified. I was like,
What was the first assignment?
Well, it was sort of broken up into different, it was kind of an overview of, like, the humanities. So I went into kind of reputations of, like, Van Gogh, Mary Wollstonecraft, Mozart, like really sort of Cleopatra, all over, kind of really spanning quite a long period of time, and then learning about these people and talking about reputations as an idea and how that sort of lives beyond, how it's approached from different angles, how history is written, why it's written that way, and all of those things. So, I just feel like that kind of knowledge and sort of learning fuels myself when I walk down the road. Yeah. Just walking down the road and recognizing, this building, these columns are kind of inspired in a weird way from the Greeks or from the Romans. It's something very lovely to kind of think, well, we don't live in isolation. We live because of everything else.
Absolutely.
And it's just nice to remind us.
So much does get forgotten, I think.
Yeah.
We like, I think there's a certain kind of ignorance in the present to where everything came from. And I think that, we do like to think that the thoughts that we're having are unique and brand new. But if you look at like pretty much the Greeks completed it. So like every thought that you've got, like someone had
Somebody had it before. Yeah.
BC. So out of all the degrees that you could have done, why philosophy?
Well, mainly for that reason, but also mainly because, you know, I think I spend a lot of time personally just trying to go...
Philosophizing.
Asking the big questions and never getting bored, infinitely fascinated by it. And also my partner is very sort of, well, at least when I met them, was very kind of rational, calm, logical thinker. And I suppose me having trained as an actor, I think there's a bit more sort of, you know, feel it in your gut, breathe it, don't try and overthink it, don't get too heady about it, just live it, be in the moment type thing. And so I found that really fascinating, kind of having kind of debates and arguments with them, because I was just like, oh, okay, why am I getting so emotional about this? Why have we stopped talking about, I don't know what we're talking about, and now I'm arguing about the way you're having the conversation, you know, things like that. And I just like get furious, just be like, no, I think you're being completely unemotional. You're taking this too head on, too theoretical rather than the lived experience. And so it was kind of like also to complement that, to sort of learn a little bit from a new approach to thinking about similar things. And I found it really interesting because I think it feels much more elastic in my brain now.
And so, and you touched on earlier about, you know, just taking on something studious in order to develop yourself. Very briefly, do you think that how important do you think that self-development is to your acting craft?
You know, I think it opens new doors in terms of how you interpret text and how you sort of interpret a room as well, just the sort of general feelings, those things that you call like first impressions, and sort of being able to really dissect that and try and understand why you have those first impressions and what it is that you are observing. I think just add layers to what you would hope to then be able to kind of bring to a part. So I think it kind of just adds a level of depth, but I'd be lying if I said that I think that that's very helpful in my work as well. I think that a lot of what we do, sort of what I was saying, is the sort of just in the moment, feel it, go. And if you do overthink it, I think you lose something. So
it's a very difficult balance to strike, isn't it, between structure and play, I think.
I agree. But this is why I think studying sort of just it fulfilled my desire that I have, so that I'm not searching for it also all the time in my work. Which is nice, because it means that I can do sort of my homework in the evening and get really intellectual about an idea. But then I can let that go and then use the more sort of feely parts of myself in my work.
I think like for me, like one thing that I really enjoyed, and I'm kind of investigating now as to whether I think it is helpful to my craft or not, but therapy so much, like I've been through a lot of kind of terms of therapy for the last sort of decade or so, just been in and out. And I found that really satisfying, learning about myself and also learning about the people that are close to me and kind of understanding those things. But actually it's probably more rewarding in retrospect when you feel those impulses and you kind of follow along those tracks when you're playing a character, to retrospectively understand the way that they behaved or what they did in that moment, you know? And like that I found really like kind of tick the box satisfying. Do you know what I mean? Because rather than just being like, oh, I'm here and I'm there and I'm there, and I don't understand it, I can be that thing and then in retrospect go, isn't that interesting?
Absolutely.
The character behaved that way.
I think is also, that's it. I think there's also an element of like, I think there's like a symbiotic relationship between the micro and the macro. And I think that if you take things like, for instance, sociology, it's like, and you take, you know, the patterns of large groups of people, that's all well and good, but it only is that pattern because it's made up of individuals, and those individuals are the way they are. And so you need the micro to affect the macro. And I think that that's really helpful when you're doing kind of like jobs, because you you can sort of understand this person on the sort of minute kind of DNA level of like why they feel something.
Yeah.
But then you can understand also their place in the story.
Yes.
And I think that that's always really useful, because otherwise I think, not to get too sort of presumptuous about it, but I think you can have that problem where it becomes a little bit removed from a sort of group activity, where you suddenly think, oh yeah, my part is the part.
The part that
you know,
leads, yeah.
and that's
Which
brilliant
is true to an
sometimes.
extent,
It's true
yeah.
to an extent,
Yeah.
but then it's also kind of like unhelpful technically.
Absolutely. How do you serve the story?
How you serve the story. But I really enjoy what you said about the sort of self-reflection.
Yeah.
Because I think if you have the tools to be able to do that, I think you can also, that self-care that I think we don't really have in this industry at all, with how to sort of deal with the aftermaths of having done this stuff,
Yeah.
I think is really important to learn those things somehow in whatever way works for you.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just
that's
rough.
healthy, because like what sometimes works is like getting really bevved.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Which is not something that I condone. I think there are much healthier ways of kind of move forward. And I remember being at drama school and being, having trouble with it when I was at drama school, letting stuff go, and being told to take a mindful shower.
Wow.
And like,
Nice.
the thing is, like, I'm a morning showerer. So, when I've done a play in the evening, I might not shower. So,
No, I'm with you. I mean, God,
yeah.
who's got the energy for that?
Mindful shower. I never actually got round to it. I never got round to experimenting with the mindful shower.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I started doing the sort of cold shower thing.
Oh, I do love a cold shower.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, do I enjoy it? No. Do I feel like I'm somehow getting to some kind of, I don't know, greater understanding of life because I'm trying it? Maybe. But it's like, it's definitely a chore, but there's something about the kind of stillness that you have to try and like just be calm and let go. Because everything in your body just wants to jump out. So...
Yeah, I've got to it because I've been doing it for a long time now.
Have you? Every day?
Every day, yeah.
Every day?
Every day. I think there's a couple of days when I'm really tired, like, and I'm just like, basically crying inside, where I'm like, I'm gonna give you the day off today, body. Do you know what I mean? But generally, yeah, every single day.
I'm in
also
awe.
like it's like winter. When it's winter time, the water is so much colder in the pipes, right?
Yeah.
That's some serious shit.
Yeah.
That's when it gets real.
Yeah.
But I do really like it. And also I found the reason why, because I was listening to Andrew Huberman's podcast on dopamine. He does an episode on dopamine.
Uh-huh.
And the way that he talks about cold water exposure and how that interacts with your dopaminergic system is that it's a much more sustained dopamine release in comparison to other stimulation, like, for example, cigarettes or cocaine or whatever. Is actually a much more sustained dopamine release, which lasts a lot longer. And you can kind of ride that out by exposing yourself to cold water for like a minute and a half a day. It's like, I don't know. But for me, I'm like, I totally get it. That really makes sense to me, the way that works. And it feels like a reset, which is really nice.
I'm not sure I'm experiencing that just yet, but I really want to. I want to get there.
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely at a stage, I think, in my life where I'm definitely learning how to just slow down, which I know sounds crazy because I'm not like old, but I feel like, everybody's got their baggage. I feel like I've been going at such a pace for such a long time and haven't really been able to catch up with anything that happened in my childhood, that happened in my teens, happened in my 20s. It was just non-stop. And my reactionary kind of response was always to sort of just be like, well, no time to deal with this now, better just plow on. And then, these build-ups. And so I'm definitely learning to try and slow down now. And sometimes it's so fascinating how habits just have this hold on you. It's so hard.
I'm still trying to speed up.
You're trying to speed up? I'll give you some.
I know. I was just thinking as you were talking there, I was like, I know that you kind of operate at a much higher energetic frequency than I do. I know that. I knew that from when I met you. I was like, Ella is just like bang, 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 bang. She can just go, right?
I just have no stop.
And I was like, I don't have, because I'm always, like, I feel like I'm always working, right?
Yeah.
But I'm always getting annoyed because I can't work at the same, like, at the rapidity that I really want to. I really want to go, But I just don't have that. I'm quite a low level operate. I'm the Taurus.
But you're like super productive.
I'll keep going.
Yeah.
You know, but definitely a tortoise vibe, I think, for me.
Slow and steady wins the race, they say. You're in a much better place.
I hope so. Eventually, yeah. But I don't want to be dead by the time I go, like, you know, oh, I did it. But what is it? Like, I don't know what it is.
Well, this is the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is where I think it comes. I mean, I don't know. I think I recently have found this kind of like bite-size wisdom that is kind of all the trend now, I think is sort of pretty, I don't want to use the word dangerous, but a little bit sort of steering, I think, people in the wrong way. Yeah. Because I don't think it's there. It's not an answer like that. It's not, you know, love yourself. It's not, you know, I feel like these sort of like little bite-sized wisdom. I mean, I know that they come from a good place, but I think that what we're really all struggling with is the complexity of how to be in something so simple.
Yeah.
And it's because we move at like the pace that we do, and we sort of are stimulated. We're like computers, right? Like constantly stimulated. And yet we're a computer that stays on that desk. Like there is nowhere for us to go. There is really nothing for us to do. And yet we're there being like, well, there's some new information, you know? Yeah. And I think that's a conundrum. That will always be a conundrum until we sort of work it out, maybe. Yeah. But in the moment of trying to work that out, I think there's something really useful about just embracing the fact that there's no answer. Yeah. And it's so hard. And I'm not saying that like I do that. I'm saying that's what I struggle with. But I think I really believe that it's in that battle of trying to just go, it's just messy. And that's okay. And my reactions to this are fine. Like, and it doesn't mean that you don't progress because, you know, you want to change it up, you get bored, you want to do different things. But I think there's a real eagerness to solve problems.
100%. And we need, like, we're so satisfied when we do tick boxes, right? Yeah. And so if you get, figure that out, done. That's what's next, that, done. And it's such a tricky thing. But I think that I know for me what the right thing is. Okay. And it's not the same for anyone. I think that what it is like, I feel most satisfied being alive when I'm on purpose. Okay. When I'm doing something which serves what I feel I'm here to do. Yeah. And I'm here to be a creative. Like, I know that about myself. Okay. Right? Whether that is directing, or whether it's acting, or whether it's making a podcast, like these things, I know when I feel like I'm on purpose, and I know when I'm deviating from it.
How interesting.
And it's so painful.
When you're deviating.
It's so painful because like it's not as easy as going, oh, I'm off purpose now, I'll just get back on purpose. Yeah. Like the universe has a really interesting way of throwing new challenges into your way. And so, and I think the reality of it is all of those the most satisfying times in your life come when you do overcome something in order to get back on purpose. You know, maybe, I don't know. It's interesting. That's how I feel.
I mean, what I was saying before about life studies is like Wollstonecraft had this sort of, I mean, not to get into it, but like broke down sort of virtues in like 3 different ways. There was sort of traits that sort of existed that she believed was for all humans, not just men, because there was, you know, great divide then. And one was knowledge, one was virtue, and the other one was experience. And when she defined experience, what she meant was she believed in sort of God sort of endowing all human beings. So it's kind of got a religious branch to it. But what she meant by experience was that challenges were given to people so that through working within those challenges, they would be able to gain experience to move on to the next one. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, without the religious connotation, it's sort of, isn't that amazing that somebody was writing then in the 1700s and you're like, saying that, and you're feeling that now. Yeah. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it, is that it's a continual human endeavor to try and work out, like, what are we doing? Yeah. And I do think that, like, what you say about sort of like battling with the kind of on purpose or off purpose is something that's tricky to kind of battle with. But I think I wonder whether or not, you know, as we were walking, we had the conversation about is there one purpose? Ultimately, is there one purpose? Is there one version of you? And is there one idea of self? Or is there one goal? Now, some would say, yes, I know what that is. And others would say, well, maybe there isn't. And in those moments where you're off purpose, maybe you're on a different purpose, And then it's like, but you know what I mean? And I think that that's really interesting to then explore. So for me, if I had to, I feel like language is never enough to really explain anything. But I think if I had to sort of kind of put it in a sentence, for me, it would be like remaining curious.
Yeah.
I think if there's one thing I should do, like an autism, I suppose, should do whilst I'm alive is remain curious, which I keep it as vague as that because, I mean, I started a business in food, and I was killing myself for that thing, I was just like absolute destroyed, not for any necessary kind of gain. Yeah. I didn't really care. I mean, I just needed to do it to the utmost.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a form of curiosity,
What started you down that track? Why did you start a business in food?
I started a business in food because my dad wanted to start a business and didn't want to do it alone. And I had some time off and I just said, oh, well, I'll give you a hand.
Nice.
Helped him out and then just got roped in. And
what was
I
it?
can't say no or stop. Tofu and vegan cheese.
Nice. And that was like delivering or like...
Yeah, I mean, it was for 4 years. So we started in like my dad's kitchen.
Yeah.
And then within about 2 weeks, it kind of blew up. And so it was just grinding beans, making milk. And then we created a range all from one bean. So incorporating the idea of veganism and sustainability.
Oh, nice.
And then, made cheese, made butter, made sort of like mayonnaise, aioli, all these different things. Yeah. And it got to the point where we were... Pardon?
How much were you working?
How much?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, it was just 24/7. 24/7. I mean, I think for 3 years, definitely, I probably was sleeping 4 hours a night. And I was filming and stuff at the same time. So, I mean, I was running on empty. Really, really absurd levels of work. I remember there was distinctly one moment where I had to like make 2,000 or something cheeses by hand because it was all artisan. And I was filming and I knew about the shelf life and I was freaking out because I was like, oh my God, I've got 2 days. I have to make all these cheeses. Then I need to go on the train to get to, it was Wales or something, do the shoot, come back, make another 2,000 and then head back out. And I had this like 1 day in the middle to like come in and do it. Oh my goodness. I was like crying in the pot, it's just like,
God.
Don't even know why I'm crying, but I was just like knackered.
Yeah.
So,
and what was it like having a business with your dad? Is that more difficult, do you think, or than having a? Because I do find that when you work with friends or people that are close to you, there are different obstacles. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's interesting. I think it's always different for everyone. I think with my parents, I think they stopped being my parents when I was quite young. They became sort of friends,
Yeah.
And I think we had a sort of habit of that anyway ingrained. So it wasn't like I was working with my dad.
Yeah.
It was working with like a friend.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think we definitely sort of made a really good team. And we're quite similar in characters in some ways.
They seem like very open, like from their Instagram. I see so much of them on Instagram that you seem to put out. You put it out, right?
I put it out. I'm in charge of that,
Yeah, they just seem like very open and kind of free people.
They are. I mean, they're great. They are also, it's always the way, I mean, it's the pros and the cons,
Do you think that because I don't know, from the Instagram, from like seeing your parents making stuff and vegan foods, etc., and traveling the world, it feels like that you move a bit quicker than they do, just in terms of like, I know maybe it's a youth thing, maybe you're just younger, but like
I also,
it just feels like you're a little bit more.
I mean, this is going back to the business, was definitely moments whereas like I became the boss, so it was just like ordering people around, and that doesn't feel great. You do have somewhere in the back of your mind, you're like, yep, that's my dad. I'm telling to work harder, So it's not necessarily easy, but I think that this is also generational, which again, sort of removing it from like me personally.
I was thinking that too.
It's a generational thing. I think, there were moments perhaps for my parents that this sort of self-reflection and kind of analysis that I love and I take for granted, although I wouldn't say I do, because I definitely think it's something I've actively developed wanting it more, was just not something that I think was something that interested them as much. But it did in a certain way. I mean, I was homeschooled for a bit by my dad, and I remember studying Nietzsche instead of learning how to, do maths. So it was always there.
Yeah. Well, I did the maths, and I don't remember any of that. So
but
I don't know about the whole. What did you were homeschooled? Did you do normal school as well?
I did. I mean, I grew up all over the world until the age of about 13. Yeah. So I was in some rural schools, non-English speaking schools.
I kind of think it doesn't really matter what you learn when you're a kid, as long as you're learning.
I think so. I mean, I think the only thing that makes it difficult is that then when you have to go into a structure, because you're choosing to be in a structure or have a way of life that is supported by a structure. So when we came to this country, we had to get the GCSEs and the A-levels. Otherwise, how do you then move on in the system?
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes it hard. But in terms of actual sort of capacity as a human being, I don't think one was any more or less viable. I think I agree, like what you say, sort of just if you're learning, you're growing, and that's sort of like expansive enough. And
we also it's amazing that we do all that stuff when we're kids, and our brains have such elasticity when we're children, and then as we get older, we kind of go, we've learned a lot, and we don't need to do so much learning anymore. And then also we kind of lose that childish elasticity in our brains, and then we get old and those things. So I actually think that learning in itself is probably the most kind of life-giving process that you can do to keep your brain alive and stimulated and elastic. But
I wonder whether or not that's because people, as they get older, I mean you lose a bit of energy, I'm sure, getting older, there's you're not sort of bouncing about as you were when you were young. But I wonder whether it's because there's also, you decide who you've become, or you decide who you are.
Yeah.
And because you've decided that, you're no longer striving to work it out.
Have you decided who you are?
Me?
Yeah. God. Do you think that you won't?
I would hope. I would try actively not to.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe it's inevitable.
Maybe it is inevitable.
I'll be 70 figuring it out.
Oh shit, that's who I am.
Yeah.
I figured it out.
Figured it out now. Jump off the bus.
Yeah, because I kind of feel that way. I think I have an idea of who I am.
Yeah.
But it's not fully realized. And I'm also open to being surprised, I think.
Yeah.
I'd also quite like to be surprised, I think, by who I become.
I think that's interesting, because I think that there are elements to it that are like your traits, right? I mean, I think that there are just sort of characteristics that are you, in the sense that, I can commonly identify throughout my life the sort of character I have been.
Yeah.
But I just, I sort of cringe at the thought of going, well, that must be therefore who I am. I kind of want to go, well, who knows? Maybe
are you ever envious of people who seem to just accept themselves and aren't particularly investigative or curious about developing and growing and those things? Because there is a certain point of envy for me, because if you've moved from a small town ambitiously to a big city, you tend to have friends and stuff in your hometown who were just I'm going to marry this person. I've met this person. I love this person. I'm going to marry this person. We're going to have kids. We're going to get normal jobs, and we're going to buy a house. We're going to do all that stuff. And I remember even then when I was living in my hometown being a bit this feels so close-minded to me.
Interesting.
But growing up, I kind of look back and I kind of look at those situations and go, God, it must be so satisfying to feel like you're fulfilling a purpose in that way. When so much of, I don't know, what we do as artists or creatives is let's just open this fucking box, right? And just throw everything everywhere and then just sift through all of it and then hopefully figure out something off the back of that.
Yeah, I mean, am I envious? I think I've been envious before with, how they say that sort of ignorance is bliss. That thing. I have looked at that sometimes and gone, oh yes, I wish I wasn't exposed to brutal poverty aged 4, you know, so because now I am a bit desensitized to certain levels of poverty, and, you know, these are things that I discuss probably in a way because I've over-analyzed these ideas. And, you know, there is a part of me that wishes that if I saw something, it would still just touch me in a way that, you know, was new and for the first time. But I do think to myself, I mean, my favorite book is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. I don't know if you've read it.
I don't know it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, ultimately, it's a kind of fictionalized version of the story of like Buddha, who kind of leaves the palace and then goes on the journey of self-discovery and blah blah blah. But I love that book because so much of it is about the sort of peeling back the layers of these ignorances that just because you're born in a certain place at a certain time, you may have, and then dealing with those things. And I think it's interesting because you go through phases, right? And I think in the times where I'm envious of that quality, it's in the low moments. It's in the moments where like the world is really real and it's really gray and it's really hard to sort of accept, and you're angry and you're sad and it just hurts. And I think in those moments, I wish I didn't know anything, you know? Totally. I really wish I would be blind and just... But at the same time, I think if you go through that, you come to a point where you can embrace that. And I think you can also continue exploring, and it bridges the gap actually between how separate perhaps you were from those things. And if that's going back to like ideas of goals, if my goal is remaining curious and trying to continually work out what the oneness is between you and me, then I am moving towards my goal. So in some regards, it's like a moment of celebration. But I think that that's me today. And I don't think that was me, you know, aged 14. I mean, I had these ideas maybe a little bit at 14, but I think I was, you know, going to school and just being weirdo and bullied and all these horrible things. You know, you do feel terribly odd. And I think I longed for like community and this idea of community. And I used to envy people who had like, this was a thing that actually stood a long time, is like the family home. Yeah. The family home, like when people used to be like, I'm going back home for the summer. Even at drama school, you know, it's like, I'm just going back home. And I would just be like, I have no notion of what that is. Yeah. I have no notion. I used to be so like, but you know, I have something else. So, and now I'm okay with that, but 100%, those things would have affected over time. Yeah.
What were you like at drama school?
What was I like?
Yeah.
I was a mess.
Go on, tell us about that. I think everyone was.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I don't know. I feel like some people do really well. Like they just kind of go in, they say, this is me, crack through 3 years, and they're kind of the same, you know, they just, maybe that's on the outside, that's all, you know, so I definitely saw some people.
I think I wanted to be. I think I wanted to be when I went.
Yeah.
I was very open to being in that case. Because also I did an MA, so I didn't get 3 years. I was like, I had to fit it into 1 year.
Oh, wow.
So I was just like, tear me to pieces. Just let's go nuts. And also I was talking, because I had Isla Jackson Victory on a couple of episodes ago, who I went to drama school with. And we were just talking about how generally you have either a mental year, like a crazy year, or they're quite sane and plain and straightforward. Mm-hmm. We had a crazy one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. How crazy was your year?
I don't know. I don't think so crazy.
Just you?
I think, no. No, I mean, we definitely had some unique characters, but I mean, I think that's the place for it, really. Yeah. Eccentrics in their own way. No, I was just mental. I mean, I was working alongside studying. I had at one point I had 3 jobs on the go just to afford to be able to live in London.
Wow.
So
what were you doing? What were your jobs?
I was working at the Rada Bar, so sort of doing night shifts there during the week. Yeah. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, I went through a whole plethora of things. I was a dance teacher for kids. I worked in a jazz bar, in a sausage shop. I mean, I did it all. Wow. And I'm a vegan. Oh my God.
You like stuffing sausages?
I was literally, just like making little sausage baps.
Jesus Christ. And what did you think you got most out of drama school?
I learnt to just totally, and I probably too much, but it was, I lost all expectation of what I thought I knew. Yeah. And, you know, that was heartbreaking and terrifying and hard at the time. Yeah. But brilliant for today.
What did you think that you knew?
I just thought I was good. I went to drama school and I genuinely thought I was all right.
Yeah.
And I left drama school going, I'm not sure I am. And, you know, these are the words that we use, good and bad. But I think ultimately what I was saying was that I felt confident in my skills.
Yeah.
But it was a falsely placed confidence because I'd never really thought about how I did what I did or why I did what I did or how to do it again.
Yes.
And it was a total kind of just fluke. And I had quite a few flukes. So I was like, oh, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And it came from a sort of unfounded confidence.
Yeah.
And when I left, truth be told, I didn't have very much confidence.
Yeah.
But what I gained from that breaking down, definitely over the years, building back up, is now a newfound confidence that lies in something far more grounded in, I think, you know, like research on myself.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I am good at this because history has proved that this is something I can replicate, or these techniques are useful, which means I don't have to worry that I can't or can do it because I can do it because I did it on this job and this job and this. You see what I mean? So it's kind of not just a sort of unfounded thing.
Yeah.
I would never go as far as saying I'm any good, but I would say I can do it.
I'll go as far as saying
well.
I love watching you work, always. I don't think I was very good either when I went to drama school. I think that I thought that I was okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think that I was good. I thought like I can probably do the job, but I didn't think that I could do it with any, I wouldn't excel at it. I thought I could be competent. I felt like a relatively safe pair of hands when I went to drama school. And I don't feel like I'd shifted that much by the time I left in that 1 year. But I'd piled so much on top of myself during that time. Like I was it was like I was a charcoal, coal, and then just loads and loads and loads and loads of pressure. But no discovery of a diamond whatsoever, like after that. But it's like slowly in the years since drama school, it's kind of chipping away or kind of moving through those things that I loaded on top of myself and actually finding that a lot of those things are useful, or at least that pressure and that experience was useful. I think for me, that the best thing about drama school was time.
That's what sort of the pressure element of it is also, I think, was for me the sort of discipline of it. Yeah. It's like learning the discipline. Yeah. This isn't something that you just do. Yeah. It's something you have to work on. And that was news to me when I went to drama school. So if there's anything I learned, was I learned how to make it a discipline.
Yeah.
And I think that's been fabulous.
I said when I went to drama school, what I want to get out of this is, because I don't think that you can learn how to act in it. Like you can't get everything out of 1 year that you can in 3 years. And I don't think that you can. I think it's still really, really useful. But I went kind of making that presumption. And what I said from the beginning was I want to come out of this knowing how to learn continuously.
Oh, wow.
Forever.
What a wonderful way of putting it. Yeah.
And I feel like in some way I did set off along that track, which I think is probably why I started the Actors Yard. And that, because it's a continuous process of like discovery, always. And I knew that I wanted somewhere that I could continue working and playing and kind of, you know, keeping alive and engaged, like intellectually as well as physically, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably why I started. And I probably wouldn't have done it if I'd done a BA when I was young. Yeah. You know, if I went to, I auditioned for RADA when I was very young.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say probably, I don't know, 19 or something.
Okay.
I auditioned for RADA.
Yeah, I think I was about 18, 19.
I was fucking rubbish. I was
No.
Yeah, no.
You can't be the judge of yourself.
No, shit. Really shit. But one, I didn't have any support, so I didn't really know how to pick any good speeches. I didn't know how to work a speech. So I did it once for my housemate at the time. And that was terrible. I went down those. And I remember walking into RADA and going, this isn't for me.
Okay.
Not in terms of like...
The vibe in the...
No, I don't think it was from my end. It was more like, I don't think I belong here. You know what I mean? I wasn't particularly in tune with the building.
Yeah.
I don't think. And so I was like, and I was fucking shit anyway. So wasn't going to get in. But then, later on, I did a degree. I did a drama degree.
Yeah.
And that changed me so much, you know?
It's so interesting how things come in time. Like, I don't believe things happen for a reason at all, but I do think that timing is so fascinating. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I didn't get in the first year, and looking back, I'm sort of not surprised. I kind of was doing, I can't remember what speech, some Queen in Shakespeare or something, having never like really lived any real experiences, you know, all coming off the back of some pretty crazy ones, but just never having the time to reflect on that. And, you know, if you're going to try and play a queen, I think you probably need to do a bit of that, you know, and so no wonder I didn't get in. Now I look back and I go, I'm really glad you didn't take me.
Yeah. I didn't recall anywhere. My first go, I didn't recall anywhere. I was really, really bad.
I don't think so.
No, but I'm so also difficult. Like, I'm really happy with that. Like, I'm really happy to like, I'm glad that I wasn't so gifted in the beginning that I had nothing to learn.
Yeah.
You know?
But this is it. I think this is where, like, for me, I was so mortified, you know, that I didn't get in, because that was the next step, and I missed the next step, and I was so heartbroken. And then I just pulled myself together, and I was just like, well, you know, don't be an idiot. Like, you know, you've got your English degree that you could do. You can just leave that, like, put that on the sort of back burner. We could always do that. But what would make you happy? And I was just like, no, I mean, you know, I want to get into the best buddy. From the classic competitive me was just, I want to get into the best one. And if I don't get into the best one, then I don't want to do it. And I just tried again. But having done the sort of year out, I worked for Pret a Manger, made a few sandwiches, made some money, went traveling, you know, got out of a relationship that I'm really happy I did get out of, you know, all of these things. And when I came to do those things again, I was coming much with a different kind of feeling. Yeah. And I think that aligned with also, I think, truth be told, a lot of it's got nothing to do with how good you are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to do with everything else, you know. How many people...
Mine did.
Yeah, no, but like, how many people look like you? How many people are your age? How many people aren't your age? How many people are short? How many women do you have? How many men do you have? I mean, it's all of that too. So what plays are they going to be doing in the third year, and whether or not, you know, you're going to fit into one of the castings? It's like all of that's got to do with it. Yeah. So it is interesting that it took a year. For me, in the sort of, you know, as we do, kind of being the protagonist of your own story, definitely I think it was the right decision not to go the first year, sort of like what you're saying. Yeah.
I was a total fuck up before university.
Yeah.
University taught me how to work. I was having this conversation with my housemate earlier today. I was so...
But when you say university, you did a different...
I did drama degree at university.
But it was a degree.
Yeah, like a BA with like a dissertation and shit. Yeah,
oh, I love it.
Yeah. I was so undisciplined. I went through clearing to go to university.
I don't know what that means.
That's basically right, where clearing is you don't have to apply on UCAS. Okay. You don't have to write a personal statement. You don't have to go to interviews. You literally call up the university if they've got spare places and say, can I come?
Okay.
And so I picked up the phone. I called them. This is how bad it was. I'd quit my job in a coffee shop because they wouldn't let me have time off to go to a festival.
I love it. The integrity.
And when I came back from the festival, having had a wonderful weekend, I had no job. And the only job that I could get was like part-time in a phone shop. And I fucking hated it. I had to wear a shirt. I was surrounded by people that were just really on a completely different wavelength to me. And I went, what the fuck am I doing? So I just called up University of Lincoln. Yeah. And I was like, you got any places? And they were like, what are your grades? And I was like, this and this. They're like, yeah, sure. And I was like, okay, great. And then the next week I was at university.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was, my first year was obviously, like most people's first years, mad, useless to a degree. I think I learned stuff about myself. But from then on, I just found a great mentor. And they taught me how to work. And they taught me how to see my ideas through.
Yeah.
And not give up on things when they got hard. And so I just don't think I would have been the person I am if I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
And so I'm super grateful for going to university. I'd have loved to have done a BA at drama school, obviously. But I wouldn't take back uni.
No.
No way.
No, I mean, there were people in my year who had done a BA and then, I don't know, in other things, and then had done drama school. Yeah, and I was like,
the double BA thing really blows my mind.
It's so excellent. You just have these wonderful layers of just information. The approach to the work seemed so much organized, like more organized and everything, you know, with their little notes and notepads and taking notes. And I was like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Sitting in drama school, because I didn't go to university or anything, you know, I just come from doing A-levels.
Yeah.
So it was wild.
How old were you went to drama school?
Yeah, I mean, I graduated in 2014, but I went in 2011. We can do the maths, but I can't do the maths.
Yeah, fine.
So I was born in 92.
20s? In your 20s? Are you in your 20s yet?
I think like 18, 19, 19 maybe.
So young.
19, I think.
I think that is really young, though, to go to drama school, actually.
Yeah.
I think a couple of years later is...
I mean, it was an interesting space, you know. I think drama school looks very different today, as far as I sort of have gauged a little bit through talking to other people. But I don't...
In what ways do you think? Just like a little bit more tentative?
Well, I think it's a bit more tentative. And it's sort of like how we began this conversation, you know, this sort of like very correct political correctness and this idea of like not offending anyone.
Yeah.
And teachers who are trying to teach something that I think is extremely difficult to teach, you know, having to sort of also use these ideas. And in some cases, you know, not so much in drama schools has it been the case, but in other cases, you know, it's almost backfired, you know, that teachers are being sort of attacked for not being able to express ideas, you know, and this is kind of problematic, I think, on different levels. But I think in drama school, whilst in my time, I think there were definitely boundaries that could have been safer and more kind of aligned.
Yeah.
I don't think perhaps where it's headed now is it doesn't allow the space for you as an artist to push yourself to the point of like exhaustion, risk.
Yeah.
And I am a staunch believer that every artist in the sort of performance arts should at least experience that once.
Yeah.
And I think you don't have to do that all the time. That might not be your method that you want to do.
Yeah.
But I think you should experience it.
It's really funny. I was at a screening for Obsession, this new Netflix series that's coming out. I was at a screening at BFI last night. And there was a little Q&A. It's a very sexy show.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, it's based on the French.
Exactly, based
Juliette
on the French.
Binoche.
Yeah. And so what was really interesting is that, you know, she was talking about BDSM sex and how in those scenarios it should always be the sub who is in charge. So it's that they set the limits, they set the boundaries of what's acceptable, and then the dom presumably plays within that space, within those rules. And it's interesting because we talk about drama school and people being really, really pushed.
Oh yeah, and sometimes too much.
Too much,
you know, definitely. I think in earlier years,
and I think maybe drama school could take a leaf out of BDSM's book and say, you know, you guys are in charge. You're obviously going to subject yourselves to being pushed in the hopes that you will grow.
I mean, I think there are.
But
this
you
is
can
it.
say stop.
Yeah.
And you can say that's my limit. That's
where
I've had enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think the area, I think that's why it's so hard, is that like where you start to say stop.
Yeah.
You might miss the whole point because you said stop too early. And what I mean by that is, without sounding like I'm a pro, you know, any form of abuse or anything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you take, for instance, the experience of taking your clothes off in theatre, like being naked in front of humans, like as an artist, that is a wonderful experience, I think, to experience. That is something fantastic. How you get to that is 100%, you know, up for grabs of making it a safe space, you know, collectively agreed on boundaries, all of these things. Yeah. But the aim to learn what that might feel like is not necessarily a bad one.
Yeah.
But if we begin to say, well, we mustn't do this, we mustn't do that, then we perhaps stop too early in allowing for the freedom to get to certain places.
I agree, but I just don't think that people should be pushed into it. I think that, like, you know, authority is a very difficult thing to navigate. And I think that if it was more of a conversation, perhaps we wouldn't get into these problems where people are saying, you forced me to do that thing. And,
I mean, I agree,
you know,
and I do. So it's, for me, I find it's a little tricky, only because I think with certain levels. So I remember one class specifically at drama school that was it was much more about the emotional belly of the scene, let's say.
Yeah.
I think I was playing Nora in A Doll's House, and there was something that the teacher at the time didn't feel I was landing. And, it became this sort of cycle of do it again, I don't believe you, do it again, do it again, do it again. And we stayed in that room with me trying to do it again for about, I don't know, what felt like 4 hours. And at the end of it, I'd lost my shit, basically. And I was just like, you're not using words to make yourself clear. I don't know what the hell you want from me. I'm exhausted. Fuck you. I'm done. Shouting into this guy's face. And he, came over to me and was just like, that's it. That's what I want from you. Just be real. Be real, and started screaming at me to just do this. And I was crying and I was angry and I was all in pieces. And he was just like, now do the scene from there. And I started doing the scene. And I was so knackered. I honestly can't tell you what I did or didn't do in that take. Yeah. But I can tell you something. I did the scene for the first time, having done it maybe, I don't know how many 100 times, in a state of flow. Yeah. And when I say a state of flow, it's just I wasn't thinking anymore. The words were just coming out of my mouth. I was just doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the lesson he was trying to teach me. Now, if there were too many rules in that room that allowed for 15-minute breaks when things get a bit, I would never have, I'm not sure I would have got to that place.
Yeah.
Because I needed to get there through absolute pushing. Now, that wasn't at all a scenario where I was being told to take off my clothes or do anything sort of sexual or any sort of issues around like how I was being defined in terms of race or sexuality. It wasn't like that. It was very much about the work. But I use that as an example to sometimes highlight the benefits of having a space where the rules are a bit blurry, because if you take that away, it's hard to push yourself like that. I link that to sort of like training the body. Yeah. It's like when you have a PT, how much harder do you push yourself?
100%. But I do think I think that a lot of that scenario comes down to who you are, because you could have left the room, and knowing that you had the option. If someone said to you, you can leave the room if you want to, would you have left the room?
I think before having done that last take, I was already on my way out.
Right, yeah.
And the only reason why I did it again was to sort of bizarrely, I'm not sure how, prove a point. Ended up, the laugh was on me because his point was proved. But I was on my way out. I had gotten to my breaking point. Yeah. So, had they told me to leave the room after the third or fourth time, or just decided to go, okay, you're not getting it today, but you might get it in a week.
Yeah.
I would have been infuriated.
Yeah.
I'd be like, are you kidding me? I'm paying all this much money and you're not going to take me there. What if I don't get there in a week? Time's running out, and yes, that is to do with the kind of person I am. But I think a lot of the people who end up in drama school are ambitious in terms of themselves and their work.
Yeah.
I think any artist needs to be.
That's where it's tricky though, isn't it?
But it is hard, and this is what I'm saying.
I would have done it. I'd have fucking stayed. You know what I mean? I know that about me. But I think
but isn't this the sort of definition of an artist though? It is the scrutiny that we subject ourselves to of whatever it is in terms of creating it for an audience. Whether that's in painting, whether that's in music, whether that's in performance art, it doesn't matter. But what we do is we obsess over nature to reproduce it in some way with a version of it that is ours.
Yeah.
You can't get to that without really looking.
Yeah.
No?
I agree.
I don't know. I agree. I'm just going round and round.
I think it's just because I have a real thing about I really want to protect people. I really want people to be okay. And I don't think that everyone is suitable for that. And I think that people don't find out until they're there. And
I think I think
giving those people an option.
It's presumptuous as well to, like you say, somebody else could have left the room and it was all too much and that was it. That decided that no more.
Yeah.
And that could have been somebody else's experience. So it's difficult to sort of analyze. But then surely the takeaway is that it can't be one rule for all.
Yeah.
And if there's not one rule for all, I mean that there should be one rule for all in the world that I'm talking about, or the world that exists with more boundaries, more security, more safe space, etc.
Yeah. I think you should be able to set your own. That's the thing.
I think you should, yeah.
It's like you should be able to ascribe to as much torture as you want to ascribe yourself to.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. It's very tricky. We are really pushing it in terms of time on this episode, Ellora Torchia. We have a little thing. I really wanted to talk to you about your work and things that you're doing. Though I watched Ali and Eva recently, which was so nice. I wanted to talk to you about Runa. Is that your character's name?
Yeah.
Loved it. I loved it so much. I really did. Also, I remember seeing that trailer for Ali and Eva, because obviously, you know, when I do go to cinema, I go see something super indie.
Yeah.
And then obviously that's what they're plugging to me. And I saw the trailer for Ali and Eva, and I was like, that's a film I want to see. I thought it was a fucking gorgeous film. And what I really loved about what you brought to that movie was not a one-dimensional, because there's a version of that movie where you watch and you don't like Runa.
Yeah.
There's a version of that movie where you go in and you watch Runa and you go, oh, fuck you, Runa. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not the experience. And not just because I know you, but that's not the experience that I had of that character.
Oh.
It was just so much more nuance and there's so much depth to it. And I feel like it was really, really beautifully realized in the sense that she had 3 dimensions, she had her own story, and she didn't just exist as a foil for the pain that Adil Akhtar's going through, Adil Akhtar's character, Ali's going through. So yeah, I thought it was great, man. How was shooting that for you?
That was amazing. Clio, director, she's brilliant. Like she's just, if you're the kind of actor that enjoys the director just like giving you loads of information to really just sit in it, and you know, she'll sort of like hide under a table in the room as you're playing out scenes, and she's like in it with you. And that's just really, really lovely. And so, yeah, I mean, that's up there with some of my most favorite sort of working experiences.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How long were you how long was yours?
I wasn't on it for too long. I suppose like no more than a couple of weeks, I think. Yeah. And it was up in Bradford.
Yeah. It's like, it's so close to me where I'm from the north. Yeah.
So wonderful to be there. And it was wonderful to just embrace that sort of part of the world. I feel like I don't have much experience of that. And I felt like everybody really wanted to make a good film. You know, when you just get that really lovely vibe, and that's always really warming. I
think it's a gorgeous movie.
Yeah.
I honestly really loved it.
It's a real love letter.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's great. And Adil Akhtar's killing.
It's so funny. When I first met him, I sort of recognized it, but I do this all the time. I'm really bad with names, and like I'm very good with faces, but I felt like I knew him, but I didn't know from where, and so I was just like, oh, hi. And I thought I was in for a costume fitting. Turns out I wasn't there for a costume fitting. We were going to do rehearsals.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, hi. And I was just like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, just making myself a coffee, and just like totally, I didn't recognize who he was or anything. And then he was just going along with it because he's so lovely. And we both ended up in this rehearsal room, and I was just like, oh, right, you're playing my husband. And he was just like, yeah. And I was just like, right, good to know. I'm sorry. Hi, my name's Ellora. I didn't even like introduce myself. What's your name? I asked. And he was just like, my name's Adil. And I was like, yeah, I should know that. So it was really good. But he's a laugh, and he's a great actor I think. For me, I learnt he can do emotional, he can do comedy, he can do it all.
It's very funny. I mean,
he doesn't take himself very seriously, like on set. And that's just such a joy.
4 Lions was probably my
first
experience of Adil Akhtar.
Yeah.
Very funny. I was talking about to Jacob Van recently on another episode, and we were talking about comedians making great actors. Yeah. And like, he brings that so much. There was a really beautiful moment in this film. I don't want to ruin it. It's not ruining it, I don't think at all. But there's a moment when you're in a car and you put your hand against the window and it's not reciprocated. And like that moment I found really interesting. It was just like a real moment of like, because I don't know whether that was in the script or not, that happens. But it's that thing. And like the two of you are really present with each other in that moment.
But that is, I think, a lot to do, because I don't think in terms of like, it's so funny, right? In terms of script and stuff, often, you know, in that scenario with that part, there wasn't a lot on the page necessarily for the character I played. But
that's what I'm saying. It's like there's a version that could have been a foil, I think.
Yeah, but the in-depth sort of work that Clio wanted to do. I mean, that day of rehearsal was just us improvising all the shit that would have happened before, you know, wow. And the kind of arguments that would have led us to the place that we got to. And that was a full day of it.
What a luxury for a film.
I mean, it was just glorious. Yeah. And I was in my element. I was thinking, my goodness, this is so juicy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
great. Yeah, that's so sick. Right, we're coming to the end of this. We have a little thing. It's called Proust Pivot Lipton Questionnaire. The reason why it's called that is because have you ever seen them inside the actor's studio?
Oh, yeah.
With James Lipton.
Yeah.
And he has this like 10 questions. Essentially, he stole them from a presenter called Bernard Pivot. And Pivot potentially stole it from Proust, who did it as like a parlor game, just like answered a bunch of questions that were kind of... So I stole loads of them. Okay. And just bastardized the whole questionnaire and made it my own.
I love it.
So I've got a few of his questions on there, but some of my own, which I think are more fun. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
This doesn't have to be super quick fire. We can talk about them. What's your favorite word?
A conglomeration.
A conglomeration?
I don't even know if that's how... I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but I really love that word.
What's the definition of a conglomeration?
I think it's something like a mix of things, or like a kind of, a mix of things.
Sounds like it.
I think.
Sounds like it.
I don't know.
What sound do you love?
What sound do I love? Oh, I really love the sound, you know, when you put your ear on your pillow and it sort of like rustles, right, but your ear's like blocked because of the pillow. It's this sort of like weird kind of, I love that sound.
Nice. What sound do you hate?
Oh, chalkboards. Anything. And also on cups, you know, when they're made in the clay type, that's scratchy.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
No. What's your favorite curse word?
Oh, I love fuck.
Fuck. Just so diverse. What's your favorite quality in another human being?
Patience.
Nice. What's your favorite quality in yourself?
Resilience.
Very nice. If I opened your YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok account, this is one of mine, what would the first suggested video be?
Oh my God, it'd be like a half-naked women doing handstands and yoga or something.
Brilliant.
Yeah, 100%, with like some flashy music.
Great. What book would you like to reread? Like if you could only reread one book ever, like again, do you know what I mean?
I mean, I think I've said it, haven't I? But yeah, it's
that one.
Siddhartha, Hermann Hesse.
Siddhartha, Hermann Hesse. It's going to have to go on my reading list that I never get around to reading. Because I'm too busy, not because I'm uninterested. So if you weren't an actor, what career path would you like to have a stab at?
You mean like reasonably or just like totally airy-fairy?
I think it's up to you.
Well, a florist.
Nice. What side of the spectrum does that fit into?
I feel like, you know, just sort of like an airy-fairy one, yeah.
I don't think that's an unrealistic. It's not
well, it's sort of like, even if I had the option to do that, I just don't think I would. I'd probably go into like, I'd become an MP or something. Quite boring. Something very serious. But I'd like to just be a florist.
You'd like to think that you'd be a florist, but you'd actually be an MP. No, the question is like, what would you like to have a go at? And
I'd like to do
if you don't fall into being a member of parliament. Cool. What line from a film will you remember forever?
Oh yeah, I mean it's probably got to be from The Godfather, hasn't it? It's I'll make you an offer you can't refuse.
Make an offer you can't refuse. Yeah. I mean, it's said like so many times.
It is. I mean, it's a bit sort of generic, but I mean that one I'm just never going to forget.
It's a great fucking line. It's a great line. This one's quite fun. So if in some mystical ceremony you were transformed into another animal, what would it be? And this, I think the insinuation behind this question, what I really meant when I was writing it was that you don't really have a choice. You don't go into this ceremony and go, oh, I want to be this. It just happens to you. You kind of stumble across this thing. And it's like all of a sudden you're transformed into an animal.
And this animal is like kind of reflective of me?
I think so, yeah.
Oh. God, I sort of like rodent, some kind of rodent.
Yeah, great.
I think it would just be, I don't know, some kind of rodent or like maybe a sloth, which is like totally not me, but I think it's because I have a fear of being lazy. So maybe I'm innate.
So we're like out of punishment, they turn you into a sloth.
Like, dude, this is actually what you are.
I don't think that's true.
I don't know.
I could buy some kind of rodent, like a fast one.
Maybe, yeah, like a...
Yeah, I think I'm this isn't asking me the question, but I think I'm a capybara, which is like a...
I do not know
It's an enormous land rodent.
Oh,
It's like the biggest rodent
You
in the
think
world.
you're a rodent too?
Yeah.
High five.
They're rodents. Okay. And then there's a serious one at the end,
Okay.
which is phrased thus. If, upon your departure from this world...
Getting morbid again.
Deep. The whole world was listening. What would you like them to know?
Continue. It doesn't matter.
Continue, it doesn't matter. Sick.
I think so. Yeah.
Great.
Well, I'm not sure how much more wisdom I'd have at my dying moment. So
Just
probably
thinking about
just that.
So you're just like, I'm too busy thinking about what's next.
Yeah, I'd just be like,
Guys, just continue.
I haven't worked it out, so
doesn't
just
matter.
keep cracking on. Good
Guys,
luck.
Crack on, you got this. Amazing. Ellora Torchia, thank you so much for hanging out with me on the Actors Out podcast.
you.
It's been great.
It's been the best. I loved it.
Thanks.
What a wonderful, wonderful thing. Congratulations. It's awesome.
Thanks for coming, man.
Bye.
Bye.